Glad to have you back on Good Morning Anambra this lovely morning, the Thursday, the 26th day of June 2025. My name is Ajuluchuku Okabwe, and this is the discussion segment of Good Morning Anambra. And we have a very lovely topic. When I mean lovely, that topic has to do with everything around you because it's all about creative imagination, your ability to picture what it is that your eyes capture and your brain transmits. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about rekindling the love of reading in today's digital age. Sincerely speaking, a wise man once said that if you want to hide something from majority of the people, put it down in writing. I'm sure lots of people will definitely don't. But now, in this digital age that we find ourselves in, if you want to hide something, I will tell you that just put it in a book, because most of our youths, even adults too, have all taken to the social media to probably watch short videos and the likes of it. Then in the studio, we shall be talking about this, and our guest this morning is Okuchukwu Okeke, who is an author. And I'm not left alone because I still have my amiable co-anchor, Noye. Noye, talking about reading, oh well, me, I'm an avid reader. When it has to do with my passionable sport, the passion I have for my sports, which is Scrabble, that makes me a reader. I don't know if you still join, if you're still part of us that loves to read, because what we do is you play words, and then the more words you know, the ability for you to win games. You understand? So what's your story about reading?
All right, we're here to discuss rekindling the love for reading in the digital world we have found ourselves. Of course, everybody is now struggling to read.
Yeah.
Now, we have Okuchukwu in the studio, and Okuchukwu, coming to you, I know that before now that students pride themselves in the number of books they
Yes.
read,
Yes.
maybe per session or per term.
Yes.
You know, have you read James Hadley this one? Have you read this one? You know, but now the story seems to have changed drastically. What do you think that has happened along the line?
Well, globalization, the influence of globalization these days, reading has drastically reduced because of influence of the social media. People tend to watch what is on the social media than reading these days. But the truth of the matter is that readers are leaders. If you don't read, you cannot lead the people. And so it is primarily because of social media, and then the youth these days, everybody.
I won't blame social media, but there are books in social media. You know, there are some novels. You know, sometimes you open your phone, want to do something, you just see them flashing before you. This story. They have it. So, why are we blaming social media?
Well, I'm not blaming it. It's part of the factors that have reduced the reading habit these days. But then, the younger people, that's why ABS is here, to lecture the youth especially, to form the habit of reading, because we cannot do without reading. But social media is part of it. And then, the younger people, everybody wants to make money, forgetting that there is process to everything. You must read first. When you are informed, you'll be able to have ways to make money. But putting money first before any other thing, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't. That's why we are where we are. And then the reading habit has drastically reduced. But we have people who are reading. At least I'm reading. I'm doing my PhD as young as I am. So, and there are other people who are reading. That it has reduced does not mean that there are people who are not reading.
People, it's not there.
People like me are reading.
Okay.
Now, people like you are reading because you're passionate about reading. People like me, I read because of the passion I have for the sport that I participate in. But now, talking about when we were much younger, reading wasn't as a result of passion. It was as a result of necessity. And now, if we don't get back to that area of necessity to read, we might definitely lose a whole lot of things. I was happy when you said that leaders are readers, vice versa. Readers are leaders too, and the lack of it. Now, with the advent of social media, don't you think that we are beginning to take away, or our imaginative, cognitive mindset is gradually eroding? And how can we get to restore that spark? Because a child that reads has certain ability more than a child that watches maybe videos or just...
There is always a positive and negative side of everything. For me, social media is meant to increase our imaginative ability. But what happens is, like me, it depends on what one has interest in. But social media is meant to increase our interest in reading. But what happens is when people go there, what do they go there to do? Instead of reading or sourcing for information, they go there to watch things that doesn't improve their thinking ability or imaginative ability. And where does that take us to? So that's part of the factors. For me, if social media is good, it depends on what you're going there to do. It depends on what you're doing there. But then, at the end of the day, the younger people, especially the youth, because we are the leaders of tomorrow, no matter what anybody thinks about this country, we are the leaders of tomorrow, and we must encourage people, younger people especially, because very soon, baton are being handed over to the younger people. And when you don't read, how do you lead the people? You will lead them astray, and the state and the country will get into trouble. And so we must encourage young people like me to form the habit of reading, both on social media and outside social media, both in every endeavor they find themselves.
Do you have any plans on encouraging people to do that?
Well, that's why I am a writer, and I've written a lot, about 6 or 7 books, and I've been...
Before you conclude PhD, you become professor.
Well, and this is my... And this is my state, and so I've been championing the cause for this. And that's why I've been here regularly, because this is my state broadcasting house.
All right, now, there's a question I wanted to ask, but because of what you have said, there's this issue of copyright. The people copying the work that are not theirs.
Yes.
And as such, impoverishing the original writers. And you see some writers, they don't really have all it takes to be, when you talk about younger ones wanting to make money. Because virtually everything we do in life, everybody wants to make money, something out of it. Now, how do you think these younger ones will go back to reading, seeing that those people that read, in quote, they feel they don't get what is due to them, or they are not well off as they ought to?
Well, every endeavor in life has its own challenges. Writing has its own challenges. Those in the movie industry has their own challenges, which is piracy. But that people are pirating my books or are pirating books does not make it that I am not making something out of it. And there is an impression I want to correct. When people are reading, if you are a reader and you read very well, when you speak, people will know. When you speak, people will know this one is informed. And you attract like minds to yourself. And that will promote you to anywhere you want to go. That you read, it must have effect on you, and it is that effect. Like when somebody says I'm a graduate, you don't say it. It is by your attitude, by what you do, that people will know that this one is actually a graduate, and that is what will push you to the world. You will be given things to do. And so, please, reading, people should form the habit of reading, and that people are pirating your books or piracy is there does not mean that I'm making money out of it, and I'm growing with the influence of other people who are helping to do it. But every profession has its own challenges. Piracy is part of the challenge we have in writing, and it will always be there till tomorrow.
So in essence, what are you telling the youth?
Everybody should choose a career based on their potentials and face their challenges.
Okay.
Now, talking about reading and you encouraging kids to read, the culture of reading imbibed into our youngsters and the rest of it all. But the government is trying to move digital with most of the exams we write these days. You see CBT exams and the rest of it all, JAM, WAEC, very soon WAEC will join suit. And don't you think this would, act against this idea of rekindling desire to read? Because kids of this generation, the past 20 years, are all geared towards that device.
Okay.
Electronic
Device.
You understand? Device. So, and now we of our generation, we are used to the hardcover. Sincerely speaking, I find it very difficult to read lengthy things on social media.
Yeah.
But if you give it to me as a pamphlet or as a book, I'll prefer to read it. And for this generation, and we're talking about the youths today being the future leaders, if they don't detract, as in, separate themselves from this online stuff and then the hardcover, don't you think it's going to be a challenge in the future?
Well, the hard copy and the soft copy, all of them are important. The older generation tend to read more of the hard copy because that was what was reigning at their own time. But in these days, people tend to focus more on the soft copy and read what is on the internet and then move on. And so the two parts of it, both the hard copy and the soft copy, are important for us to move forward. The younger generation should focus more on both the hard copy and the soft copy. These two work hand in hand. We cannot do without the other.
Which one do you prefer?
Well, I prefer the both of them. If you give me any one, I do. Both the hard copy.
So the most important thing is that you read.
You read.
Okay, now.
You're talking based on the fact that you're already passionate about reading. That's why it's easy for you to say, okay, whatever thing that comes your way.
I think at this point, it's important to look at ways to encourage the younger ones that feel the ICT is the in thing.
Yeah.
So how do we now encourage them to focus on reading, even with their gadgets, rather than watching more of things that do not add value
to their lives? Well, that's why that is part of what ABS is doing this morning, encouraging people. I know a lot of people are watching.
Yeah.
And so it's part of, we are now influencing people, both the young and the old, to form the habit of reading. And so this is part of the process. But then, both the hard copy and the soft copy, all of them are important. And it doesn't depend whether the older generation or the younger generation, all of them are important. It depends on the one prefers. But if I prefer hard copy, it doesn't make me a lesser human being. And if I prefer the soft copy or internet materials direct from internet, it doesn't make me a lesser human being. It just depends on preference. That's my view about reading. But generally, it depends. The whole thing depends wholly on the media, especially the Anambra Broadcasting Service. They should be in the forefront of championing the cause of.
No. I think you have to go down to the schools. The schools, because media didn't teach me what I knew about my studies. So it's the schools. So your campaign should go more to the schools. Go to schools and make schools, children, you understand, pupils in classes, understand that every child has come in contact with the gadget. Some as young as primary 2, 3, they already have tablet at home. And the parents will tell you that this aids their study.
Yes.
You understand? So that is where you need to take your campaign to. ABS will do the elaborate aspect of it. But the real grassroots, the real thing that you need to do to rekindle. You understand? Nursery rhymes were in books. But now we see them on phones being played to a child. You understand? And if a child grows with that, he or she tends to, toe that line. But if a child grows with solid book, and again, as parents too, we equally need to pick up that habit of reading. I remember then, my grandfather, whenever I go on holiday, every day there's a newspaper to read. Sometimes he will even come and tell me, read some.
Right,
you understand for me? So this is where parents should come in and probably help, and don't put it only on
and even the church.
You've said something earlier concerning readers being leaders, and now I want you to really let us know the effect of not reading. A generation that do not read, the effect it will have on families, on the communities, on the state, and the nation at large.
When a human being, people who don't read, they will hardly, and leadership depends on, in different levels. In family, there are people who lead there. In schools, there are people who lead there. In church, there are people who lead there. In Anambra State, we have our leaders. In ABS, we have our leaders. And so what happens when these people who are leading in different fields are not the readers? What happens to the establishments or where they belong? it will gradually be dropping. And at a point, the society becomes a mess. And if you go and check countries who are advancing in science and technology today, it is because they are reading. And both technology-wise and then anyhow you want to place it. But one of the factors that is making them grow technologically these days is reading habit. And so we must encourage our youth especially, because these are people whose future is still there. And then these are people who the older generation will hand their baton to. And so if they are not readers, we will have a country that is not functioning very well. And that will send a very bad signal in the future. And so we must encourage, no matter how we choose to do it, but there are factors, there are people who must play a role. The church must play a role, schools, and then parents especially, because charity begins at home. It is the family that is the first place of socialization of a child. And so that's...
Okuchukwu, my question, or rather out of curiosity, well, as young as you are, like you said, PhD, you know, and very soon you'll be professor. What gave birth to this, your reading idea? As in, where did your love for reading begin? Probably by the time you share this piece of yours, somebody watching us will definitely learn a thing or two and then probably get hooked on how you started.
Well, I am Abumonye Anambra. I am from Anambra State and from Adaziani, to be precise. And I came from a family that encourages, you know, I said this from the beginning, the socialization of a child starts firstly from the family. I came from a family, the Okeke family, where people are encouraged to read. We have produced people from different fields of human endeavor. And so my family first was where I was built. And then I went to different schools. My secondary school was a seminary school. And in seminary school, you know what that means. You must read to pass your exams. There's no manipulation there. And then my university first degree, our Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and then other ones is our own Anambra State University, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu. And if you go and check all these universities, their track record for excellence is there. Their pedigree for excellence is there. You will hardly find manipulation there. Both in my secondary school and then the university, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and then our own Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu University. It depends on what you go to school to do. But for me, myself, I am a product of good school. And that is what has produced me to a reader.
All we thank God for you. At this point, we're going to take a short break here. We're still talking, rekindling the love for reading in today's digital world. We take a break to feel the pulse of the masses. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
We sincerely apologize for not bringing you the Vox Pop for what we were discussing. But then, quickly, as we round up, Okuchukwu, one last shot. How do we get the non-educated to now pick up this desire, this love, this passion for reading? Because it's not just for the educated, I hope you know.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, in conclusion, education can be both formal and informal. Wherever you belong, reading is important, no matter how small. Information is power. He or she who has information is the greatest. And so we must seek information in different forms, both formal and informal, for us to have a better society, for us to have a better country, for us to have a better Anambra State. Thank you.
All right, and that's how we're wrapping up the show for now. Rekindling the love for reading in today's digital world. Would like to thank you so much, our guest, for coming this morning. You've really talked a lot concerning this as the reader that you are. Okuchukwu Okeke, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ABS.
I will urge you to sit tight. We'll be back for more on Good Morning, Anambra.